Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Strategy and Resources Scrutiny Board. My name is Councillor Asghar Khan, and I will be chairing today's meeting, which is the last meeting of the 2023-24 municipal year. Before I move on, I just want to say Councillor Mask gave his apologies, and he's been a Scrutiny Board member, and he will be stepping down as a councillor. I just want to thank him for his contribution to the board. Also, I would like to thank you all, the board members, for your contribution to the work programme this year. We have covered a wide range of issues, and it has been a pleasure to be chairing the meeting. As usual, we are broadcast live on Leeds City Council's YouTube channel. I extend a warm welcome to anyone tuning through the YouTube channel. As board members will be aware, today is the start of the pre-election period, or PERDA. And as usual, it is known, we are all aware of the rules of the govern. So that just to be a brief reminder, when we making comments to stick to the issues and details in the report we are considering today, and not to be tempted to bring other wider issues into discussion. We will be covering a lot of ground today with 5 substantive items to get through. We have an update on the financial covering, the HRA and the revenue budget, an update on procurement, contract management and social value. A performance report from the IDS service desk and 2 scrutiny board statements. The first on the equality, diversity, inclusion to reflect our work on this important issue in February and previously. Our end of year statement for this financial year. At this point, I would like to invite everyone formally to introduce themselves. I will now go around the room to my left to be introduced. Guests, can you also please introduce yourselves?
Hello, everyone. My name's Andy Parnham, and I'm councillor for Armley.
Hi there, Hannah Bithell, councillor for Kirkstall.
Good morning, Eleanor Thompson, councillor for Guiseley and Rawdon.
Good morning, Sharon Burke, councillor for Middleton Park.
Morning, Tom Hinchcliffe, councillor for Bramley and Stanley.
Good morning, Andrew Byram, interim chief digital information officer.
Morning, I'm Ben Tunnicliffe, one of the service centre team leaders.
Mariana Pexton, director of strategy and resources.
Morning, Victoria Bradshaw, chief financial officer. Morning, everybody. Councillor Deborah Cooper, exec board member for resources.
Good morning, everyone. Lewis Sincala, head of procurement.
Good morning, everybody. Sasha Walton, social value manager.
Winkage, you're representing Morley South. Councillor, by the way, representing Morley South.
Morning, everyone. Rob Clayton. I'm the scrutiny advisor to the board.
Thank you for the introduction. Moving on to agenda then, can I ask Rob to take us through the first 5 items of the business, please?
Yes, just briefly, Chair. Thank you. The formal items. Item 1 is appeals against refusal of inspections, and there are no appeals, Chair. Item 2 is exclusions of the public, and there are no items to be excluded from the public domain today. Item 3 is late items, and there are no late items. Item 4 is declarations of interest, and can I ask members to disclose any that they may have under the Leeds City Council's Code of Conduct? I'll take silence as none. I see nothing. Item 5 is apologies, Chair, and we have apologies from Councillor Chapman, Councillor Andrew Carter, and Councillor Almas, as you've already noted, and I have not been notified of any substitutes at this stage. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rob. So item number 6 is the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 19th of February 2024. Do members accept these minutes are true and correct record? Yep. Okay. Are there any matters rising from the minutes? Rob, do you have any items to pick up?
Yes, Chair, just one or two from the last meeting. Minute 84, there were some additional questions on the equality, diversity and inclusion item that we took from Councillor Bithell, just to note, I think it was picked up in a minute, so just to note that they've been provided as requested. Minute 85, there were some follow-up questions on Leeds 2023 in relation to Northern Dreaming and questions raised regarding the Wikipedia page. I do have the answers here in front of me. I'll just very briefly verbally go through them because we only received them a relatively short time ago. I didn't have time to circulate to board members. So Northern Dreaming, which was a book to be provided to all children born in Leeds in 2023 in Leeds, there were 13,000 printed, 11,904 were distributed, 1,016 were given out to partners on the project. And then therefore the total distribution was 12,920. And then a number were held back by Leeds 2023 to be handed out upon request, effectively. And that related to a question from the board. So just to put that on, I will record that in the minutes as well. And then on the Wikipedia page was a question about Leeds 2023 managing their own page. In actual fact, it was a grant from the Wikimedia Foundation, and it was an independent journalist who managed that page. So just to clarify that question from last time as well. Then moving on to minute 86, just to say we did pick up work programming discussions, and the chair and I, well, the chair prioritised items for today's agenda, and they're all now set up as we discussed. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other matters arising from the board members? Nope. Thank you. Okay, we will move to agenda item 7, which is the latest update on our year budget position for 2023 to 2024. We approach to the end of the financial year. It has been a challenging year, and Victoria, you and your team are doing an excellent job managing our budget. Would you like to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. As you say, this is the Financial Health Monitoring Report as at month 10, which is January. The position is showing an overspend position of 36.3 million. That is a slight improvement on the position that we reported in December. The overspend reflects mainly in regard to Children's and Families Directorate, and the main area is around external residential placements that we've been talking about throughout the year. We have had an underspend within the strategic and central accounts, and that's mainly around the debt savings that we've incurred through the year, and that's offsetting some of that overspend in Children's and Families at the moment. When you get the next report, that will be on the outturn position, and that will show a balanced position for the council, because as we've been saying through the year, any overspend would be offset by being mitigated by the use of the West Yorkshire Combined Authority payment that we got, the one-off, 17.7 million, and also the remaining amount through reserve. So we will show a balanced position. Moving on to the HRA, that's showing a balanced position for the year. The dedicated schools grant, that we have got a pressure in year of 2.6 million. However, we did have a balance brought forward of 9 million from 22-23. So we'll use that to mitigate that pressure, and then we will be putting plans in place around how we manage that going forward. And a new thing that we're doing for next year is that we will present those as part of the financial health report, so you will see those action plans. In regard to the action plans for 23-24, the budget assumed that would make 58.6 million of savings for the council. The majority of those have been delivered, except for those in Children's and Families where we've had a delay. And this is mainly through the the timescales that are required around some of the implementation of some of the proposals, because obviously we're dealing with the most vulnerable with our children, and we need to do those savings proposals safely. So that's where we are on the revenue side. If we look at the reserves, we have still left the general reserve unchanged, although we are experiencing that position. And as I've said, we will be using some of the reserves to balance the budget for the current year. With the collection fund, we are experiencing a slight reduction in the council tax collection. We feel that is due to the cost of living people are experiencing. We do put a lot of support around that, and there is the local council tax support scheme. But we have seen a slightly lower collection than we have in previous years. However, on the flip side, the business rates collection is slightly higher. And therefore we are seeing that businesses are paying their business rates. Okay, so I think those are the main points from the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Councillor Cooper, before I open for questions, would you like to comment now or wait till end of the discussion? Thank you. Any comments or questions, board members? Councillor Palmer.
First of all, thank you, Victoria, for that update. On page 27, it refers to the risk of being unable to find a balanced budget has been very high. Obviously, I think in a previous board meeting, there was reference made to pressures from children looked after services, and I think a figure of around 1,500 was mentioned, saying that that was likely to be a peak that we were going to face as a city. I just wondered, since January, when this report was made, do we have any indication of where that figure's going?
We've done some analysis, and the children looked after seems to be stabilising, and that's the same in external residential. We are seeing slight fluctuations up and down, but it seems to be around about that 142, 146 level on the external residential, which is where we're seeing the pressures. What we are doing is around monitoring that very closely, but it hasn't changed much from that position. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Victoria.
Can I just add, sorry, it is the cost of the provision that's causing us the issue. That's where, even though the numbers are now stabilising, the cost is increasing around those placements. Sorry, I should have added that. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Biffle.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you for the report, and I am really grateful for the level of detail that's located within it. On the procurement cards and them being just zero balanced for most staff, and some have got the ability to do it. I just wonder if we've done anything around the officer time that's, I guess, being wasted by having to go back to somebody further up in order to get the authorization or to get the card. I'm thinking if you need, I'm thinking basically of things like youth service, where they might previously have been able to get the equipment straight away, and then we're having to go further up the chain in order to do it. The strategic underspend, obviously it's great that it's 10 mil underspent, but I just wonder why, because it's quite a sizable difference. And then there was discussion that we were going to get some money from government around children's services or children's social care, and I don't think it's mentioned in the report. And I just wondered whether actually that was coming, wasn't coming. Obviously, we've got the WICA money in there, which is brilliant, that's been provided as a one-off payment, and I just wondered whether the government was also coming through.
Thank you, Chair. So just on the procurement cards, what we did as part of the exercise was we wrote to each chief officer, and they reviewed the list of who had procurement cards, met with their teams and said who could relieve their purchase card, so the credit went down to zero. That was around spend that wasn't essential in the delivery of the service. So where it was essential, those purchase cards were retained, and there was left enough in each of the teams for them to have a purchase card where they needed them. If it came to light that somebody needed it for the essential delivery, so for example, like the youth service, they could have their purchase card reinstated if it had been taken down to 0. So therefore, we feel confident that everybody who needs their purchase card for the essential delivery of services have got theirs. If they do want to spend and they haven't got a purchase card, then you would question whether it was essential and whether they should be spending it, because we've had a non-essential spend freeze. Okay. On the strategic account, this is the central account and all the accounting entries go through there. So there are some elements, for example, like the debt. So we've done a lot of work around the capital programme, and we've reprofiled that capital programme, which has been reported, and it's contained within this report. What that means is that the debt levels that we require to borrow are lower. We've also looked at the borrowing requirements of the council and looked where we can delay it so that we don't incur the costs. So half of that underspend is to do with that. The Treasury team have really looked, and where there are opportunities to borrow, they have, otherwise we've delayed it. And we're expecting interest rates to reduce in the summer. So therefore we would start to look into fixing to longer term borrowing as well. There are some other accounts in there that we keep centrally. So for example, the energy budgets. We put an amount in when we saw that energy was increasing when we set the budget in 2023. That actually energy started to come down. So we've retained that in the budget. So that's part of those central accounts we keep. And that's why we're seeing the underspend in that area. Okay. Just on the social care grant that Children's got, that was the grant for 24-25 social care grant. That has actually been put in the budget and we have given it all to Children's, but it was for adults and Children's. So they've had that for 24-25. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Next is Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for introducing the report and providing it. I just want to ask, there's been a particular revelation today, obviously in the news, about the situation regarding the review of Little Owl's provision. Appreciate that is another board that would delve into the detail, but obviously there was a 900,000 savings to be made in the budget for the next year. I just wondered whether this confirmation, whether the 3 unfortunate closures in terms of Kentmere and Gipton North and Chapel Allerton are going to cover that full amount, and is there a particular reason why we can only give 2 months notice before they've got to be closed, given that's what's been particularly highlighted in the news reports today? Thank you.
I'm sorry, I haven't got the detail on that specific one. We could come to a future meeting, but I wouldn't like to comment because I don't know enough detail about it. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Firth, as you know, this Scrutiny board doesn't cover the children's services, but however, Rob does cover as the advisory, Scrutiny advisor on the children's and families, and he will take you away as well. Thank you. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just ask about adult social care? I'm looking obviously at the figures and they're predicted to deliver a balanced budget. But the reality is that they are incredibly short-staffed and the numbers are increasing. And I know it talks about some demand budgets for adult social care, but we all know that's going to increase. I just wondered how you envisioned that working out, Victoria, please.
So in both children's and adult social care, we're seeing significant increases in demand. And over the winter in adults, we've been watching the position very closely. And although these figures show a balanced position for adults, it doesn't show what's going on in the background. What I would say is that as part of the budget process, so as part of the medium-term financial strategy, we do model that demand going forward and the increases in costs. And therefore, we have incorporated significant amounts of investment in both those areas, and that's why the savings requirement is high for next year. To manage that, we do monitor it on a regular basis, and obviously we come here on a monthly basis to provide updates. But it is something that we're well aware of. But the same in adults and in children's. It is a national issue, the numbers that we're seeing coming in. We are forecasting there is a lot of work done within adult social care around how we manage that provision and how we mitigate it. Okay.
Thank you, Victoria. Before I bring Councillor Bithell in, Victoria, the transport levy refund and Merrion House reserve and underspend on energy are identified as an area where there could be a funding to address the overspend. How much is the underspend on the energy expected to be?
A ballpark figure is it's about 3 million on the energy side.
And will there be enough to, in these areas above, address the 36.3 million projected overspend?
Can I just go on that though? That 3 million is within the 10 million underspend on the strategic account. Okay, so that's already been taken account of. So the overspend that we're dealing with at the moment will be covered from the WICA, the 17.7 million, and the use of the reserve, and there will be enough to cover that.
Thank you, Victoria. Councillor Bithell, please.
Thank you. Number 4.3, the business rates appeals. I, if I'm honest, I just didn't really understand it. So if you could give us a little bit of information on the different dates and lists and all that, and what it actually means for us. Thank you.
Could you, what paragraph was it again? Sorry,
4.3 on page 50. If it's easier for that to be taken away and emailed to us, that's not the end of the world either way.
Would it be okay if I did that? Yeah, thank you.
Will you turn your mic off, Victoria? No, that's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Victoria, for the for your question, for your response to any questions. Councillor Cooper, would you like to comment on this item or?
Thank you, Chair, and I don't have much to add from what Victoria really gave a detailed introduction to the month 10 position. Apart from really just to say that we are continuing to see pressures on demand of services, and yet we're still trying to make sure that the books balance at the end of the year, but you'll get that further report into next year's first scrutiny, I would imagine. But thank you, Chair, and thank you for members for their continued scrutiny of this work.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. The recommendation are on page 19 of our agenda pack. Are we happy to move, please? Yeah, thank you. So we can now move on to item 8, which is the procurement update. This item comes to the board in February 2023 and follow up on the past interest in procurement process, most notably social value and contract management changes and training. I think Lewis is here to introduce the report, and he's got some presentation also. Lewis, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. In terms of what I'll take you through today, 3 items: contract management, social value, and the Incoming Procurement Act. I'll assume that members have read the report, so I will capture the most salient points from the report today. From a contract management perspective, work has been ongoing within services and packs, including training. So central government provide training that is accessible to all public sector bodies. To date, we've had 110 of our colleagues. There's roughly around 400 contract managers within Leeds City Council. So around a quarter have completed that training, and there's a few that will be looking to complete that as well. There is a second training option within that, which is for practitioners, so it takes it a step further. And we do, as detailed in the report, there are roughly 42 that are enrolled on that, and we're working with services to make sure that they are undertaking that training as well. In terms of the next bit, we do have a contract management community within Leeds City Council. So this has been well established for, I think, roughly around a year. That's to support contract managers across the council as well. We do send out regular communications, training offers and feedback as well to support our colleagues who are doing this on top of their day jobs in most instances as well. In terms of the next steps for that, we'll be looking to launch a SharePoint site to support in terms of some of that standard material, and also looking at Viva Engage. More recently, we've been looking at a contract management framework, so reviewing all the contracts across the council, so roughly around 800, and looking to tier those in terms of value and complexity and risk to the council as well. It's proposed that will be high, medium and low contracts, and what that will mean is that we're able to provide support to services that's relevant and proportionate as well. We've also been working on a balanced scorecard, so a set of very simple questions that will go out to contract managers and to services every quarter to test the how the contract is performing. So at the moment, there is no consistent way of us being able to capture that information across the council. We've done some initial user testing with services over the past month, and that's been well received. So we will be looking to roll that out in the new financial year in time for July 2024, which is when we propose that there will be a launch of the contract management assurance board, which will sit within the financial challenge group as well. And again, this will help to provide oversight of contract performance, and the intention is that services will come to give updates on what they're doing to rectify some of the poor performing contracts as well. Additionally, we will be going to Core Business Transformation Programme Board in April to present a business case for source to contract technology. So over the past few months, what we've been doing is reviewing the market, but also speaking to other public bodies in terms of how they manage their contracts to I guess, try and get the best practice that's out there at the moment. And there's been a recognition that our current systems are not adequate, not only for existing contracts, but for the upcoming Procurement Act legislation as well, which will demand more from public bodies in terms of monitoring and publishing of information. So we will be going to the board in April to seek approval to move to procure a new system, but also to get further resources as well to manage this, because it will mean quite a significant resource implication for the council in the coming months and ongoing as well. I think that covers the main points from the contract manager. So we'll move on to social value. So social value has been well embedded within the council for a few years now. And since 2020, we've adopted the TOMS framework, which is the themes, outcomes and measures, and is a way of being able to measure social value within contracts. And it is a constitutional requirement. So for any contract across the council, services are required to consider social value at the point of the procurement activity in the pre-procurement phase as well. Some of the work that we've been doing at the moment, Sasha and the team have been in post since June 2023 last year. So we moved away from our previous arrangements and decided to invest in a social value team, which has delivered significant benefits, I would say, to the council, and allows us to respond and adapt to local and demographic requirements, I would say, a lot more easily than in previously. In terms of what Sasha and the team have been doing is supporting services with the monitoring and evaluation of social value, working on...
Lewis, can we just pause for a minute? Well, not for a minute, 30 seconds, should I say. Every Monday, 10:30, it's fire alarm testing. Thank you. Yeah, Lewis, continue, please.
Thanks, Chair. As I was saying, Sasha and the team have been doing significant work with services, but also internally to make sure our processes and systems are fit and robust. A key thing as well we've been doing is engaging with the market in terms of what social value looks like within the council, but also internally with services. So Sasha and the team have been doing significant work in training services and colleagues to really embrace and embed social value practices within their procurements. Yes, and in terms of the social value team as well, we are the regional chair for social value. So in terms of all of the Yorkshire and Humber councils, Sasha's the lead for that and chairs that group. And I would like to add that we are seen as a leader across the region in terms of what we're doing for social value as well. To complement this work as well, we will be launching a social value board. So previously there was a social value board, which I think dipped a little bit in previous years, but to complement this work, we will be launching that again in the new financial year. And we'll be doing that to review and report on social value outcomes, to talk about our successes, but also to look at where we can improve, not only within services, but for residents as well. In terms of partnerships and collaboration, as I mentioned, Sasha is the chair for the regional subgroup, but we're also doing a lot of work within the third sector as well, and other partners to make sure that those voices are heard and that it's factored into any of the planning we're doing as a council as well. In the report, there's also a dashboard. So Sasha and the team look at putting all of the information that comes back from the tender into there, and also to report on that, which I think previously was not as robust. So the new dashboard does help to do that as well. At the moment, we've got projects which detail around £87 million worth of social value, so additional benefit that can be seen from the contracts. And to date, there is around 9.5 in there. So what that means is Sasha and the team will work with suppliers to make sure that the commitments that are put within the tenders are delivered on as well. In terms of some of the additional social value as well, so beyond and above what's put within the tenders, because we've got a localised social value team, what we're able to do, as I previously mentioned, is adapt and respond to changes or requirements that come in from services. So we've a lot of work has been done to do things like that. For example, in the report, it's mentioned around the school uniform exchange. So families that can't afford to pay for the school uniform, Sasha did some excellent work with suppliers to raise that money and raise £5,000, which went to Zero Waste Leeds as well. Additionally, as well, we've got EDI reporting. So a new thing this in this financial year has been the inclusion of EDI reporting and specific EDI reporting. So as part of our tender documentation within the social value bit, there are specific questions that we do ask of suppliers around EDI and what they're doing. So around all of the protected characteristics as well. Another bit is just around the social value funds, so which previously went to exec board, but this will be launched in 24-25. So there was a recognition that actually for some of the below 100 grand contracts, it's really difficult to obtain social value. So actually one way of doing this will be in exchange for a modest annual fee from suppliers, they'll be able to get an evaluation benefit, but also that money that's raised from that will be able to will go to local community projects, and that will tie into the social value board as well to make sure that voices from all relevant partners and organisations are heard as well. And finally, around the Procurement Act. Thanks, Rob. I split it into two bits, so legislation changes and implementation. So in terms of what the key changes for the Procurement Act, which is due to go live in October 2024, procurement processes. So at the moment, there are quite a number of processes within the existing procurement legislation, and that will be condensed down into 3 procedures, 2 of which reflect existing procedures. One procedure, the new one that which might be of interest, is the competitive flexible process. And what that is what that does is allows us to design our own procurements and make them relevant and fit for purpose as well. In terms of notices, I did mention previously that there will be a bigger requirement on the council to publish more information relating to contracts, procurements and notices as well. So we've recognised that. Contract management we've covered, and debarment, current regulations are not do include for that, but the new legislation will mean that we're able to see who's excluded or excludable as well. And then in terms of contract award and challenge, there's not, the new legislation is quite similar to the existing one as well. So not much changes there from our perspective. And then in terms of what we're doing as a council for the implementation of that, we're still waiting for further information from central government. However, we have proactively started trying to get ourselves ready as an organisation for the incoming legislation. So there is a Procurement Act working group comprised of colleagues across the council, which I chair, and that's to help us get ready for the Procurement Act as well. And we've got some of our colleagues who are super users and deep dives, completing the deep dive training as well, which will help in terms of the implementation of this act. As I previously mentioned, there will be a resource impact on the council, so we are trying to work through that with the source to the business case. Regional council link, so I sit on a strategic procurement board with Yorkshire and the Humber, so we're able to benefit from what the other councils in the region are doing as well to share best practice. And then in terms of supplier communication, I think that's really important for the Procurement Act, and it's not just to focus on the public body, but what do the changes mean to suppliers and the supply chain. So to aid some of our suppliers, we're doing some work at the moment, quite simple, things like publishing the information on our website externally, changing our tender documents to notify suppliers and things like email signatures. But actually, as time goes on, we will be doing more of that engagement as a region to make sure that suppliers are well versed and briefed for the incoming legislation. And that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lewis. Before I bring Councillor Firth in, Councillor Cooper, would you like to make any comments or on this item before I open the question? Okay, I'll just go over to Councillor Firth then.
Thank you, Lewis and colleagues, for that informative presentation, also the comprehensive report. I just want to talk about item 12, which talks about the source to contract business case. And obviously, you've mentioned about the new technology coming to CBT board in April. I just wanted to ask, it states in the report that the new technology is unlikely to even support the full requirements of the Procurement Act 2023 when it comes into operation. That's because also some of the gaps are still yet to be filled in, but ultimately our contract assurance work has also shown that we may be having value leakage and losing a significant amount of money, for example, in relation to the 8.6% on average in other organisations. And if that's just 1% here in Leeds, that'd be £11 million, which will be very much needed at the moment. Could I just ask, in terms of your working group, what you're doing to make sure you address meeting those requirements, and how far into the stream are you able to update us at the moment, given the grey area in terms of some of the implementation?
Thanks, Councillor. Do you mean the Contract Management Assurance Board or the Procurement Act? Yeah, so that's due to go live in July 2024. But in terms of what you were saying around the current requirements, the legislation is quite loose around that at the moment. So I'm happy to come to another board meeting if required to give that update as well. But yeah, in terms of that work and the Contract Management Assurance Board, we've not covered that as yet.
Councillor Firth, do you want to come back?
Thank you for that, and look forward to hearing more in due course. As it's mentioned in the report by EY about contract assurance, and I've mentioned about the 8.6 on average for each organisation, has there been any sort of work done on maybe how Leeds City Council as an organisation is potentially having leakage in terms of what money we could potentially be clawing back, given that we're doing so much work manually rather than automatically using that system?
Yep. So the report makes reference to the work that's undergoing, that's taking place with EY at the moment. So we are reviewing some of our contracts as a phased approach to see where we've got value leakage as well, and that will become standard practice across the council as well. So myself as head will be driving that work forward for not just the phase contracts that are in there at the moment, but actually ongoing. And that will be part of the contract management framework as well.
Thank you, Louise. Councillor Bithell.
Thank you. Yeah, I was also going to bring up the tech element, and I guess why it's not already in place. I guess, like, I realise it's waiting to be signed off, etc. But why did that sign off not go a year ago or whatever? Is it that it's new tech? Is the question on that. The grading that it talks about in number 20, are you comfortable with me doing a multitude, or do you want them one at a time? Okay. The item 20, the EDI reporting, do we report on the grades of staff, or do they report on the grades of staff, or just because you can get a sort of the lower pay grades having more of the protected characteristics? So it would be interesting to know whether we're getting that level of detail. Where it talked about the commitment to deliver social and economic value, I wonder how hard we can go in terms of the contracts. How much can we write in around social value? Actually, are we working with the anchors to say, actually, if you're not putting in a certain amount of social value, you're not getting a contract? And if we work together with the anchors or the other anchor organisations in the city, actually that has quite a lot of power in terms of suppliers. And I wondered how far we're going with that at the moment. And therefore what priority, I guess, we place on the social value when we're putting contracts out. I'd love for the working group stuff that you were talking about around the Procurement Act to come back to scrutiny. That would be really helpful, I think. And then on number 22, it talks about the support to the SMEs and VCSEs. And I wonder whether we do as a sort of D, we've got ABC, I wonder whether D, we've got any mentoring available. I guess it would have to be cross. You couldn't have somebody mentoring them to then take their contract, but potentially cross organisation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So your first point around new tech, I guess I would say within the public sector market is quite limited and quite immature. I do think there has been quite a drive in recent years, and that's why we've done that consultation with other public bodies as times have changed. So our original contract, I don't know the date, I can get that information, but we've had it for quite a number of years. But actually, I think it is time to look at what else is out there, particularly with the incoming legislation and what that will mean in terms of requirements and resource implications for the council. So our existing technologies and fit for purpose, ones we've seen out in the market, do seem to complement that a lot more. I do know from a central government perspective, they are working with suppliers and procurement system providers within the UK to make sure that their systems are fit for purpose moving forward as well. In terms of EDI reporting, I think you'd asked around the grades and whether that's within there. I don't think we currently have that, not that breakdown. I'll bring Sasha in.
No, not at the moment, but I think that's really interesting because, like you say, you know, those protected characteristics will be more in those lower grades. So yeah, something we can look at, Councillor Bithell.
Thanks, Sasha. And I think the third one was around levels of social value slash what we're doing with anchors. So in terms of Leeds City Council requirements, services can put up to 20% weighting of social value within the tender documents, which I think does demonstrate a true commitment from a Leeds City Council perspective. You know, there potentially might be instances where that could be higher, but actually when we look at other councils across the UK, 20% seems to be quite standard. As well. And then in terms of the work that's going with the anchors, actually that's kickstarting in the new financial year. So there is an anchor subgroup and part of that will be social value. And just to bring up the point around going harder, we do have, they are contractual commitments. So we have really robust terms and conditions that mean that if the social value commitments aren't met, there are penalties associated with that as well. And then the final bit around mentoring across organisations for sort of smaller suppliers. Definitely something we can look at if required. I'm not sure if we're doing a lot on that at the moment, but take your comment, Councillor Bithell.
Councillor Bithell, there is kind of buddying kind of system going on across Leeds and West Yorkshire when it comes to social value. So I've been buddied up with the person just to share best practice. So there's something kind of similar where we are supporting each other across organisations.
Thank you, Sasha. Councillor Parman.
So thank you, first of all, Lewis, for that excellent presentation, and thank you to Sasha and the team for everything you're doing on social value. It's good to see that the team are getting ready to implement the 2023 Procurement Act in October 24, so that's good news. And thank you for your leadership across the region. It's really reassuring. I think Councillor Firth basically raised the issue that I was looking, the first issue. I've got just two issues regarding the report by Ernst & Young regarding leakage and maybe squeezing out a bit more value for money, which I think you're going to come back to. Is that right? Yeah. And the second point, which I noted when I read this report yesterday, was regarding it's paragraph 21 on page 77, and you refer to surveys undertaken with the council suppliers. You've only got 13 responses out of 2,000, which is disappointing. I know it's early days, and I'm sure you'll carry on that. But I just wondered if you had an explanation of why the response was low, and can I just ask, secondly, how did you actually contact the contractor? What method did you use?
Am I okay to bring that out of the meeting, Councillor? Wasn't an employee at the council at the time, so just need to double check some information. Is that okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Burke.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the report. I'm going to start on a low and hopefully end on a high. I'm hugely disappointed to see we're using the term BAME in the report still. I've got to mention that this council has agreed not to use that term, and there it is, large as life. So I've got to mention that. I want to talk about social value, if I may, kind of in the round, because it's one of the terms that's been kicking around forever, isn't it? And sometimes there's very little hard evidence underneath it, and it's almost an ever-moving feast. So could you explain a little for me, probably showing my ignorance, what the social value engine actually is, particularly seeing as we have meetings with it? Well, the engine for me is an inanimate object, so I'm probably wrong. And the social value board's not met for a long time. So it's very easy, isn't it, to, if you could explain the engine, what the role of the board is, I know what it says in the report, and also how it's measured. Now, I know there's a list of measurements, but if an organisation writes X, Y, and Z, what check and balance is there attached to that to make sure they are delivering what it says on the tin? Does that make sense?
Thanks for that, Councillor Burke. So the engine is literally just a calculator, really, where we once we get the information from the winning bidder, it just stores that information, and then it just allows us to report on the back of it. So we put in kind of what the spend is, it calculates the social values, it lets us know what is being committed and what is being delivered. It allows the information to be live. So the example that you can see in the report, that's a live dashboard, so that's just a print screen. But it also allows me to contract manage, to look at the contracts, clearly see where each supplier is to delivery, and then that will be part of my contract management meetings with them. So to answer the last part of your question is that they will be contract managed on social values. So we, as a team, we aim to do it as the medium think the one high, medium, low. So stick with that. So for example, with the high ones, we might meet them 3 times a year. With the low ones, it might just be once a year. I've got contract management experience, so more than happy to do that and hold supplies to account. So yeah, so the social value board, you're right, we haven't met for a while, and that was due to us transitioning from the social value portal to the engine, and then allowing the team to become embedded. There were no blueprints for the team. It was literally, you know, a new team to the council, with the first authority to have a social value team up and down the country. We're known as pioneers and beacons for social value, so I'm going to take that. So that's the reason why it kind of steps back a little bit. But yeah, it's very important to have that board. We want to talk about successes, about issues, you know, recognise the amazing work that's been done across the council, but to also make sure that social values is being embedded in the correct places across the city as well.
Thank you. Can I just add something to that? Looking at your dashboard, 109 projects have added social value, but only 19 of those 109, which is only a proportion of the contracts in place. So it's just about 10%. Only 19 have actually reported any impact. It's not a criticism. My question is, if I'm contracting with you and I say I'm going to do X, Y, and Z and I don't, what's the impact on that? So does that mean I won't get another contract? I'm kind of thinking, what's the stick that will make me carry out my social value obligations that I've agreed to? Because that reporting is quite low, isn't it?
The explanation for it being so low at the moment is that we're engaging with our suppliers to get that evidence from them, to be able to then enter that into the engine. So we've created documentation to send suppliers, they complete that, send it back to the social value team, and then we will update the system. So over the next couple of months, you'll start to see those figures coming up, and we ask for that information quarterly. But we're also doing a little pilot as well with 4 of our suppliers, where we're able to send them a link so that they can update their own information and what they're doing and input evidence and the things like that. But the difference is from the portal to now is that we've got a team and we're experienced at contract managing. So if we're noticing that a supplier is not delivering, we'll just be picking up the phone, booking in a performance meeting, and if that fails, then we'll be putting remedies in and asking for the money. You're welcome.
Thank you, Sasha. Any other questions, board members? No. Councillor Cooper, would you like to comment now, please?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, for all your questions. It's obviously an important area for scrutiny members, as it is for us as an administration. I think, first of all, I just want to thank Lewis and Sasha for the work that they've been undertaking in this area now for some time. That's really starting to pay dividends, and I hope that future reports to this board will bring the evidence of that from that's coming from our suppliers and partners as well throughout the city. As Lewis and Sasha said, we are leading the way on this in terms of social value in Leeds City Council, and we want to continue to do that because we know that by us actually making sure that our contracts do have that element of social value, that we do monitoring and make sure that that actually happens, makes a difference to our residents. It makes a difference to our communities, you know, and it makes a difference to young people who may have some aspiration around work in the future as well. So I can only say I hope that in future this board does bring back more work on social value, because I'm sure as we go on into 2024 and further into 25, there'll be much to report in this area. But thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper, and also I'd like to echo Councillor Cooper's comment and also pay my appreciation to yourself, Lewis and Sasha, for an excellent report. And thank you for responding to the questions. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Are we happy with the report recommendation on page 71? Yes, thank you. So we now move on to agenda item 9, page 81, which is the from Integrated Digital Service on the service desk performance. The board last considered this report February 2022, when performance had dipped in the main due to staff issues and the post-pandemic recovery. Andrew and Ben are here to run through the latest position. I think a major improvement in terms of performance and the KPS. Andrew and Ben, do you want to start off the presentation, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, as mentioned, I'm Ben. I'm one of 5 service centre team leaders. As just mentioned, the last time we were at Scrutiny was a few years ago, and at that time our performance was below expected levels, and there's a few different reasons for that, which I'll go over briefly in a moment. We acknowledged the failures at the time, and since then we've been actively working on improvements, making sure they're agile, and more importantly that they're resilient. Although we hope events similar to 2020 don't happen again anytime soon, we need to be naive to not consider that any events similar would happen again that would cause high call volumes or wait times. So our latest paper paints a very different picture. So our current performance is something we're all very proud of, and it shows the work that our team has put on has really paid off. What I'd like to do, I've got a presentation. It'll take around 10 minutes if that's okay. Just go over some of the issues we had in 2021 in a bit more detail, and then summarise some of the changes that we've put in place since then. And then I'll go over some of the changes that are currently in development and will be coming soon. So starting out with stats, which are in our paper under Appendix B on page 87. There was a lot of information in that graph, so what I've done, I hope that's okay, is just break it down to some of the essential numbers between 2021 and 2023, which are on screen now. For reference, our SLA for calls answered is 93%, and that's what those ticks and crosses are referencing. So the graph in the paper demonstrates the increase in calls and self-service tickets that we received during 2020 and 2021 due to the COVID lockdowns at the time and the massive uptake that caused in remote working throughout the council. The increase in that had a huge impact on our service, with customers calling up who had never worked from home before, needing help with things such as connecting to VPN for the first time. We also at the time saw a significant rise in repeat callers and people calling for things that we would class as simple queries. The reason for that is because they no longer had their colleagues sat around them who typically they'd ask those simple queries before phoning us, and they come to us first. The increase in workload was also due to various projects being rolled out over those years, such as the introduction of Microsoft Teams and a Windows feature release at the time. All those things resulted in high wait times to get through to us, and customers were understandably unhappy about that. They'd often hang up before getting through to us, and because of that, our reputation took quite a big damage at the time. Also, as a result of the increase in calls, we saw our staff morale dip quite significantly, and certain members of our team chose to leave the council as they were unhappy working for us. At the time, we were unable to backfill their positions due to a recruitment freeze as well. The graph shows that when the recruitment freeze was lifted in Q2 2021, and we were able to begin recruitment again, we started to see an increase again in our performance and our SLAs, and that increase was also alongside some other changes, which I'll highlight in the next slide. So on the next slide, sorry. So yeah, there's just some things here that we've done to help increase our performance alongside additional staff. So in 2022, we did an internal restructure of our team to improve and speed up our processes and also provide clearer roles and responsibilities. We used to have levels, so level 1 and level 2. Level 1 was everyone on the service desk, and level 2 was everybody else. We've changed that, so it's a flat structure with 3 internal teams. Automation, so the service centre have been integrating Microsoft Power Automate into a lot of those processes to speed them up and also reduce manual tasks for our staff. It also allows them more time to focus on other duties and minimise margins for error. A notable example of that is our escalation flow. So we now have a flow where customers can escalate a ticket themselves that they believe is taking too long. That triggers a flow which goes through and lets everyone in our team know that an escalation has been received. It fills in that information in a sheet and then emails the customer automatically to let them know they've received it. We also automated our telephone lines as well by adding IVR options for customers to choose to get through to relevant agents. We've changed the way we advertise recruiting on board successful candidates in an aim to make the process quicker, and it also gives our new recruits a better start in their careers. So we now advertise on Indeed and Facebook as well as on our website, and we have a rolling advertisement on our website throughout the year. That rolling advertisement means we can get into recruitment a lot quicker. So as soon as somebody leaves or as soon as someone hands their notice in, we're able to start backfilling their position, minimising any gaps. The graph showed before that when we do have gaps, like in 2021, that's when our performance starts dipping. All new recruits are then taken through a new 4-week training plan, and we also have a new 6-month probation plan as well that they go through. It's not just the new starters that we focused on. We also provide free LinkedIn learning accounts now for all our staff, and we encourage them to sign up and find relevant courses that they're interested in. And if they do find any relevant courses, we give them time away from their BAU to complete them. We've strengthened our relationships with our teams within IDS, so that's been particularly important when it comes to projects. We're now able to get more involved in things such as the communications that's sent out to customers to make sure they're not filled with jargon. And because we understand our customers better than other teams within IDS, we can make sure they're written in a way that they understand. And it also means that our colleagues get earlier access to products that haven't been released yet, so they can get training. We've also improved internal communication with our own team. So we now have face-to-face team meetings every 2 weeks, and we have team building away days 4 times a year. We've built new resources for our staff, including a new knowledge base, which has a new wiki within it with support documents. We have a new public-facing Power BI dashboard. I'll mention that a bit more in a moment. And we send monthly updates to our SLT, and we receive input from them on our performance, our staffing, and any recent major incidents. And they're alongside other regular service reviews for our paid-for services as well. Just on to the next slide, please. So this highlights some changes with our staffing. So a lot of the changes I've just mentioned, so I won't repeat myself, but just a few more that I wanted to highlight. So we did begin team days in 2021, where we ask all our staff to attend on site for a range of activities. So they're different things. There are things such as we've had mental health support groups come in and visit and speak to our team, like Andy's Man Club. We've had sessions on cultural cohesion and EDI, team building games, and also some technical training. In 2023, we started a new recognition awards for our team, and that was successful, so we'll be continuing that each year. And we introduced a buddy system in January 2023 to help develop and train our B3 colleagues, so that's the lower grade colleagues. So each B3 is assigned an SO1, who's a higher grade, and they offer technical and professional training and also monthly one-to-ones to them. That system's been really successful, and it means that our B3 colleagues, who majoritively take the phone calls, now have more technical skills so they can complete more queries over the phone rather than passing them on. They can also help with the tickets that come through on My IT now as well, which speeds up the length of time they take. On to the next slide, please. So this shows some improvements that we've made with communication between ourselves and our customers. So feedback is obviously really important from our customers, and it's what we use to ensure we're always delivering high quality service. And we do that by running regular customer service and satisfaction surveys, which are done throughout the year. The most recent one was November 2024, and on the left of your screen there is a word cloud, which shows some of the most popular words that we use during that survey. We consistently get high results for these surveys. We always achieve 4.5 or above out of 5 for any questions with a scale. To receive such high praise so consistently shows that the training we're providing is consistent and high quality. And to the right of the screen, you'll see 3 new ways that we've introduced since 2020 to communicate with our customers. So we started in 2020 by creating a Facebook page that we use to communicate about major incidents. We also offer useful IT tips and inform customers of any upcoming changes. We also post them on Insight as well. The Service Centre portal at the top there, that was introduced in May 2022, and that can be accessed by every single Leeds City Council colleague. We use that to communicate with our customers, but more importantly, our customers can communicate with us using that as well. So we do post major incident updates, but also there's forms on there that the customers can use to submit complaints or compliments, and also the escalation form I mentioned is on there, as well as lots of other things like guides. That site also provides a link to our new Service Centre dashboard, which we released in the last quarter of 2023, and that's so far received a lot of praise and good feedback. So the dashboard is open to all Leeds City Council colleagues. We're hoping to also open it up to ICB colleagues as well very soon. It's all of our stats. So we Obviously, like I mentioned, our reputation took a bit of a hit a few years ago. So what we're doing is want to be really open and honest about our current performance. So the dashboard is updated every working day before 9:30. So you can log on anytime after 9:30 and you can receive all our latest stats from the previous day, the previous month, any issues that are ongoing, and anybody can access that. And on my last slide, we have what's currently in development at the moment. So I just mentioned Power BI in our dashboard. That's something that's always been worked on. There's always new features. We're currently migrating it into the cloud, which should speed it up and also release some new features to us. We're currently working closely with Leeds City College and the Lighthouse Futures Trust to offer some special educational needs internships from this September. Roles in IT often attract people with SEN and certain neurodiversities, so it's an opportunity to help people, young people from Leeds, gain some skills in IT, but also gain some workplace skills, and it'll also help us as a management team learn how to better manage people with those SEN. We're also involved in the pilot for Copilot. That's Microsoft's artificial intelligence tool, which we're currently trialing and have 300 licenses for. A big change that's happening next week is the switch from our current phone system Avaya to a new phone system called Genesis. That will offer more capabilities for our service, as well as 16 other services within the council. It'll give us a lot of more tools, one of them being call recording, which will be one of our main new tools which we can use to help improve our customer service and training. And finally, to the right of the screen there, we have some changes coming up to our IT service management tool, which is BMC Helix. So starting with My IT, that has recently been redesigned with a new modern look. Templates on there being redesigned and they've been streamlined, with the focus being on the customer experience. Virtual agent workshops have been commenced with our support partner, and the ITSM team are working alongside them to learn how to configure a new virtual agent. That will complement our existing self-service tools such as My IT to increase capacity on the service desk by deflecting calls away from us to the virtual agent for some simple queries. And finally, the ITSM team is working on implementing a configuration management database. That's a CMDB. So one of those is a central database that organises information about our IT infrastructure. So things such as our hardware, software and systems. So having all that information in one place will provide the service centre with information about users' devices and software when they phone us up on first call. And that's it. I'll hand over. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben, for the presentation and introducing the report. Any comments or questions from the board member? Councillor Cooper, would you like to comment now or later on? Later on. Thank you. Councillor Bithell, please.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you very much for that presentation. That was really good and added a lot more meat to the bones of the report. So I'm grateful for it. One of the things that appeared on the slides was that we're actually answering less calls now than we were before. So I wonder if you want to add a little bit more to that in terms of it sounded like it was an improvement, but we're answering less. Also, I'd really like to hear some more about the life-changing roles. It feels quite a grandiose statement about the unemployed in terms of the roles that we're providing. So it'd be good to hear a little bit more about how that's working. And then in terms of the survey, have we done any analysis on, you talked about the fact that the expectations were really low because it took a hit in the 2021 element. Have we done any analysis on the impact of those low expectations on the high response rate in terms of it's 4 out of 5 because the expectation was that it was quite low? Does that make sense? Have we done any analysis around that? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So the first question was around the call. So we are taking less calls than we were in 2020 and 2021, but we are roughly around where we were in 2019. So we took a peak in 2020 and 2021, and we're now back to where we were before then. Is that okay? Does that answer the question? Sorry.
I think part of the reason maybe when we were all working remotely during COVID and the calls obviously increased on how to use the equipment and the various software that was on the equipment. I remember rightly, I'd never used Zoom before. Suddenly I'm sat at home having to work with, a laptop and virtual calls, and so needed some help occasionally from the team and on the service desk to assist. And I would imagine that I was only one of 8,000 doing the same. So there was a definite increase in need for support during that time, and I think that now we've moved away from COVID, that and we've all got used to the systems a bit better, I think. Well, I certainly have, and that there's probably not that increased need right now. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Bithell, do you want to come back?
Yeah, I think it possibly was that I wasn't clear enough in the question, actually, because I absolutely take those points around there being higher need. I guess, Robbie, you able to put the slide back up, actually, please? I guess what I'm trying to understand is the difference between the number of calls that we're answering and the numbers of calls placed, because currently the number of calls placed, in theory, is lower than the number we were answering. And therefore, what's the reasoning with the gap? I guess in some cases, there will be that there's just too many calls in that one moment to answer. I guess that will be part of it, but I wonder if there's any more. So last year we were answering 85,000. This year we've only had 80,000 offered, and yet we're still only making 74. So I guess it's that gap that I was, trying to understand.
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, we haven't got the most recent ones up there, but we have got them, and it has increased even more since then. So we were still having staffing issues last year, so we were short-staffed. Since those stats have come up, we're now fully, we have lost one person, but we're now almost fully occupied. It takes quite a long time to train people, so we do get people in, and then it takes at least 4 weeks to train them. We don't put them all on each phone line. We put them on certain phone lines, and as they learn more, we get put on more and more phone lines. And I think that's what is really being shown in these. So in 2022, we were still quite heavily short-staffed. 2023, we started recruiting. Even towards the end of 2023, though, we didn't have a full complement of staff, and the ones we did have, we had about 8 still who started in, I believe, November. We're now in 2024. We've got full staff. All of them have been here at least 4 months, 5 months, and the last time I checked, we're at 97%. So that's I believe that's what that is showing.
Thank you, Ben. Mariana, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I just wondered whether some explanation for the number of calls offered being fewer was to do with people are doing more self-serve.
Yeah.
So that's a deliberate plan, obviously, in terms of people, as Ben said early on, there were a lot of calls coming through where probably people didn't really need to be on the phone. They could actually self-serve. So I think that would be a partial explanation for there being fewer calls offered.
Any other question, Councillor Burke?
I've got one. Thank you for presentation. I just wanted to ask about your internships. So you've got special educational needs internships. Well, I do quite a lot of work with people who are have a neurodiversion or are disabled, and I know their huge ambition is to get employment. Housing have just employed just 6 months ago. So I just wanted to ask why they're not traineeships or apprenticeships, which would lead to employment rather than an internship.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just say, so I think I've missed 2 questions just before then, so I can come back to them after.
Yeah, I've got some. I'm going to bring you back in anyway, Ben, for that one.
I'm not too sure the answer on that. I'll have to come back to you if that's okay. I am involved in it. I'm involved in planning this new internship, but I wasn't in the initial stage of why it's an internship as opposed to something else. So I can definitely take that away and come back to you if that's okay.
To answer Councillor Bithell's other questions, Do you want to answer them now? I thought just to give you a bit of thinking time, actually.
Can I just get a reminder? Is that okay? So I've slipped.
Do you want me to say what they were?
Oh, no, I was just wondering whether we needed to bring councillor Burke back in first. No? Okay.
I did want to.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was about the life-changing roles for the unemployed. And then a question around the low expectations and the effect on survey results. Thank you.
Can I come in on that first point? Because we've also been working with a company in Leeds called Generation, who put people through an AWS Skills Academy for 12 weeks. And that's specifically identifying people who want to get into tech but can't. And there's some amazing examples there. There was a caretaker in a school who's come in and is now a programmer at Eversheds, who's completely transformed his life. And we've brought in a number of people in through that route into the service desk. We very much see the service centre as your starting point as a career within IDS. We've got loads of examples of people who've started there and moved on. We've got a guy, Kieran, at the minute, who's working with the email team and doing some fantastic work there, likely to secure a post in that role. And people gone through into more senior roles. So we continue that work with Generation. The SEN piece is very much Ben. So do you want to talk about that particular point, Ben, about the special education needs?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, more about the internship. So yeah. So we're hoping to introduce around 3 or 4 in September this year. So it'll be for a whole academic year. One big benefit we get is that they bring with them a coach that coaches both them, but also coaches us, which is really good. So things like if we're not training them in the correct way, or if there's a better way to be doing something, they can help us with that. We do currently have employees that do have certain neurodiversities who have struggled in the past because the training that we have in place didn't quite work for them. So we have adapted for them and they are doing really well, but this will just help push us a bit further. The idea is there isn't a job at the end, but the idea is that as jobs come up, they will then be in the best position to apply for those jobs and then get them. Sorry, there was your... No,
I think your final question, Councillor Bithell, was about survey, and I think the thing with the survey is that bathtub effect. You hear from the really upset and the very happy, and you don't hear from the people in the middle. But the fact that it's scoring 4.5 out of 5, I think those that do respond to us just show that there is a high mark there. That's not to say we don't get people who have got issues or raise complaints. So that information is gathered each month and is sent through to the management team. And I think you've got a process there. Well, you respond to it. I certainly see that. And if someone has scored as lowly, we will go back and try and learn from that experience around why they've scored us in that way. So we do circle back around it in terms of that continuous service improvement piece.
Thank you, Andrew. Councillor Bithell, was that okay?
Yeah, just one quick thing on the internship element. You talked about them applying, and I just and I don't need an answer at this point, but it'd be good just to make sure that when we're doing the application process, that is then also really aware of the SEN needs, because quite often the application in itself is a barrier to being able to get the role. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Burke, can I bring you back in now, please?
Thanks, Chair. I just want to add a little bit more onto SEN interns. I think there's danger of lumping everybody who is neurodiverse together and their needs. So that's just something perhaps to take on board. But with a traineeship, and particularly with an apprenticeship, even though they will not be a guaranteed job at the end, they will leave with accredited qualifications, which will help them. So they might leave with a level 1, 2 literacy, numeracy particularly. So it's doing the internship. It would cost the council exactly the same. So there's no additional cost, but it just gives those applicants, those people, that additional accredited qualification, which I think is really important when we're trying to support people.
Thank you. And any more questions? No. And Yeah, come on.
Ben, very quickly. I'm not. It's a comment. It's not a question or an interrogation. But thanks for your report, by the way. I'm actually, as well as a counsellor, I'm a support worker for adults who have learning disabilities and autism. So that's very keen on me, this internship, and seeing the success over time. And I'm sure it will be a success, and it's fantastic that we're doing that as a council. I would like to see a report, if possible, back to this scrutiny board in future, maybe after a year, just to see how we're getting on and where those individuals end up, because obviously, as you say, they might start in the service centre, but they may go elsewhere. And it'd be good just to see where that pattern of dispersal goes, if that's possible. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Cooper would like to comment. And yes, Councillor, Rob is taking notes, and definitely we will bring something back in future. Councillor Cooper, it's yours.
Thank you, Chair, and just to say that we'll take those comments away and come back with some response, particularly around the internship that was raised, and how it may be different in terms of them getting accreditations and qualifications. So we'll look into that and bring that information back to scrutiny members, and if you're not on scrutiny board next year, we'll still feed you that information because you've asked for it anyway. I just want to say actually also that I'm really impressed by the turnaround that we've had in this area, that as was said in the beginning, there was low expectation. There was a lot of complaints. It was a really difficult position to be in, and the team have really turned that around. So I just want to acknowledge that and to say thank you. I think it's really important that we thank people when they come to scrutiny. They take the criticism, and they deal with it, and then turn it around and come back with a report that's showing you those improvements as well, that we need to see, and we'll continue to press for those results to continue to rise in the right direction. I have to say, any time that I've needed to contact the service desk, they have been nothing but excellent, understanding, and really helpful in putting right whatever the issue with my tech kit I've had. And I hope that's the same for other members around the table as well. And I really look forward to the improvements that we're going to see coming forward in IDS. So in terms of the co-pilot that was just kind of slightly nodded to, that could be a real game changer for a lot of the work that we have to do in the council, and could be a real time saver as well. So I'm looking forward to the future in terms of that, of what we may be able to bring back with some really good news, I hope. But thank you, Chair, and thank you to the team. Can you please take that back?
Thank you, Councillor Cooper, and Andrew and Ben. Thank you for responding to questions and comments, taking comments away. And as Councillor Cooper says, last 3-4 years have been very, very difficult due to pandemic, and you have been really asset to us, helping us through that difficult period. And just pass our thanks on behalf of the board as well to your team for doing an excellent job. Anyway, thank you. Keep up the good work. Thank you. So recommendation on page 81. Are we happy to move the recommendation? Yep. Thank you. We can now move to agenda item 10, which is the Scrutiny Board statement on equality, diversity and inclusion, which follows our consideration of the issues and attendance from the staff networks at our last meeting in February. This item seeks an approval from the statement, which is provided Appendix 1 to the report, starting on page 95. Rob, do you want to briefly introduce his report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Very briefly, you've covered the majority there, I think. Yes, just to follow up on the recommendation from the February report, which was that we'd produce a statement that covers the board's consideration of this, not just this year, but actually in past municipal years. So that's provided in Appendix 1, as Councillor Khan noted. And the purpose of bringing it really is to note any comments and seek approval from the board for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board members? And Councillor Cooper, do you want to just wait till end of the discussion, or do you want to do it now?
Shall I turn it around on its head a little bit? Yeah, so I really want to thank the board and you, Chair, and the members for the work that you've done in this area. We know how important an area it is for the council. You know how we prioritise it from Tom and the leader, cabinet, the exec board, and all members actually want to see this work to really continue. I think it's an excellent report with a statement. I even like the photos of you all looking, have to say, really good. When we look at it, it really shows, doesn't it, how we can work together in terms of scrutiny and exec board members and administration to bring about something that we all want to see and hopefully make that difference going forward, particularly for our employees, through which we've heard from the staff networks around. So well done. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Any questions or comments from the board? Oh, Mariana, sorry.
Sorry, can I just add my thanks as well, because obviously, it's such a big issue for us. And, particular thanks to Rob for kind of holding the pen on it, which is, it's never an easy job to distill what is a massive, loads of discussions that have been had and trying to crystallise. So what then? And I think it is really good. And just to mention that the timing's really good in terms of us receiving this, because we've got our annual reports going to executive board in June on the quality improvement priorities, where we'll also just make sure that that strategy and the accountabilities are clear. So in a sense, we'll be able to then really feed this directly through into that. So it's just a really good example, I think, of kind of scrutiny working well and informing things from a member perspective. So thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. Any questions or comments from the board members? No. Can I also take the opportunity to thank Councillor Cooper, Mariana and Rob, and, for supporting the Statutory Resources Scrutiny Board. And you've been really asset, honestly, you've been really brilliant to our board as well for your contribution. Thank you for that. Are we happy to approve the statement? The recommendation are on page 91. Yeah, thank you. We can now move to agenda item 11, which is the board end of year statement for 2023-24 municipal year. My first year as chair of the board, I think we have covered a lot of ground, and this is reflected in the end of year statement. Rob, once again, over to you to briefly introduce this report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, very, very briefly. So this is the end of year statement for the board's work this year. Each scrutiny board does it, and it's brought to the final meeting of the year for approval and will ultimately be published on the council's website. So just to set out that very brief detail, Chair.
Thank you. I open for comments or questions to the board. Nope. Oh, must be good then. Thank you. Thanks, Rob, for this, for the responding to the report. Thank you. We are happy to approve the statement as set out the recommendation on page 101. This will also approve the statement for publication on the council website, as Rob has indicated. We move on to the last agenda item, which is the work programme. Guests are welcome to stay or hear the discussion, but if you're not, thank you for attending today's meeting. Thank you. Yeah, Rob.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, just the final work programme item of the year. Appendix 1 has that on it, which details what we've done, really. And then just to note, there are some items, obviously, that we could take onto the successor board, and I've got those details. I mean, just a couple of examples would be digital strategy work and the employee mental health and wellbeing update that we've covered this year. So those items are duly noted, so board members can be confident I'll make sure that's brought into our plans for the following municipal year. I think that's it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any question to Rob or comments yet? Councillor Bithell?
Thanks. Yeah, I was going to request that we had a look at how we use data analysis moving forward, and surveys, and how we extrapolate that across the council as an evidence base. Thank you.
That's been noted. Yep.
Yeah, fine.
Yep. Thank you. That brings me to the end of today's business. Thank you for all your contribution throughout the year, and I look forward to our next meeting in the new municipal year 2024-25. Councillor Burke, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I'm sure I'm speaking for everyone, Chair. Just say you've been a great chair this year, and I think you've been really mindful that everybody wanted to speak. So thank you.
Thank you, Sharon, for those comments anyway. Thank you. Have a lovely afternoon. Thank you.